Chapter 6. The Purification of Anne and the Offering of Mary in the Temple. August 28th, 1944. In Jerusalem, I see Joachim and Anne, together with Zechariah and Elizabeth, coming out from a house, which must belong to friends or relatives, and they are turning their steps towards the temple for the ceremony of the purification. Anne is carrying her baby, all wrapped up in swaddling clothes. Actually, all tied up in a wide garment of light wool, which, however, must be soft and warm. It's impossible to describe how carefully and lovingly she carries and watches her little baby, lifting the edge of the delicate warm cloth to see if Mary is breathing freely, and then she adjusts it to protect her from the sharp air of a clear but cold winter day. Elizabeth is holding some parcels in her hands. Joachim, with a rope, is pulling two big and very white lambs. They're more like rams than lambs. Zechariah, he has nothing in his hands, but he's handsome in his linen garment, which can be seen under a heavy white woolen mantle. Zechariah, now much younger than when I'd seen him at the birth of the Baptist, is in his full manhood, just as Elizabeth is a mature but still fresh woman in her appearance, and she bends down in ecstasy over the infant's tiny sleeping face every time Anne looks to check on her baby. She also looks beautiful in her blue, almost dark violet dress, and in her veil that covers her head and then falls down onto her shoulders, and on the mantle which is darker than her dress. And Joachim and Anne are certainly stately in their best clothes. Unexpectedly, the happy father is not wearing a dark brown tunic. Instead, he has on a long garment of a very deep red, which nowadays we would call St. Joseph's red, and the fringes attached to his mantle are new and beautiful. He too is wearing a kind of rectangular veil on his head, and it is secured with a leather band. Everything is new and is of excellent quality. And Anne, oh Anne, she's not wearing dark clothes today, oh no. Her dress is a very pale yellow, almost the color of old ivory, tied at her waist, neck, and wrists with a large belt and with ribbons that seem to be spun from silver and gold. Her head is covered by a very light damask veil, held at her forehead by a thin but precious plait. She wears a filigree necklace around her neck and bracelets at her wrists. She looks like a queen, even more so because of the dignity with which she wears her dress, and most particularly her cape, which is of a light yellow color, hemmed with a Greek fret beautifully embroidered in the same shade. You look exactly as on the day you got married, and I was just a little older than a girl then, but I still remember how beautiful and happy you were, says Elizabeth. Yes, but I am even more so now, and I decided to wear the same dress for this rite. I've kept it for this all these years, even though I was no longer expecting to wear it for such a ceremony. The Lord has loved you very much, says Elizabeth, sighing. And that is why I'm giving him the thing I love most, this flower of mine. How will you be able to tear her from your heart when the time comes? By remembering that I did not have her, and that God in his goodness gave her to me. But I shall always be happier now than then. But even then, when I know she's in the temple, I will say to myself, she is praying near the tabernacle. She is praying to the God of Israel. also for her mummy, and I will have peace. I'll have an even greater peace when I remind myself she belongs entirely to him, so that when these two old but happy parents who received her from heaven are no longer alive, he, the Eternal One, will still be her father. Believe me, Elizabeth, I am fully convinced that this little baby is not ours. I myself was not able to do anything more on my own. No, God the Almighty put her in my bosom, a divine gift to wipe away my tears and fulfill our hopes and our prayers. And that is why she belongs to him. For now, we're her happy guardians, and may he be blessed for this. They have now reached the walls of the temple. While you go on to Nicanor's gate, I'll go and inform the priest, and then I'll come too, Zechariah says. And he disappears behind an arch that leads into a large yard surrounded by porches. The group continues to proceed along the succeeding terraces. I don't know whether I've said this before. The enclosure wall of the temple is not on level ground, but it rises up higher and higher by means of successive terraces. Each terrace is reached by means of a flight of stairs, and on each terrace there are yards and porches and beautiful portals wrought in marble, bronze, and gold. Before reaching their destination, they stop and take out the contents of their parcels. Cakes, I think, which are wide and flat and glistening with oil. There's also some white flour, 2 doves in a small wicker cage, and some big silver coins, which appear quite heavy. But fortunately, garments back then didn't have pockets. If they had, then these coins would have made holes in them. Ah, and here now is the beautiful gate of Nicanor, all sculpted in heavy bronze and overlaid with silver plating. Zechariah is already here, beside a stately priest who is dressed in linen, clean white linen. Anne is sprinkled with what I suppose is blessed purifying water, and then she's instructed to proceed toward the altar of sacrifice. The child is no longer in her arms. Elizabeth, who has stopped at this side of the gate, has taken her. Joachim instead enters behind his wife, dragging a miserable bleeding lamb behind him. And I do exactly what I did on the occasion of Mary's purification. I close my eyes so as not to see the slaughter. And now Anne is purified. Zechariah whispers something to his colleague, who nods, smiling. This priest then approaches the group, which has reassembled, and congratulating the mother and father on their joy and on their loyalty to God's promises, he is given the second lamb, the flour, and the cakes. So, this daughter is sacred to the Lord? May his blessing be with her and with you. Look, over there is Anna. She'll be one of your daughter's teachers, Anna of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. Come here, woman. This little one is offered to the temple, dedicated as a victim of praise. You will be her teacher, and she'll grow holy under your guidance. Anna, already completely gray, fondles the child, who has awakened and is looking with her innocent and surprised eyes at all the white and gold glinting in the sun. The ceremony must be over. I didn't see any special rite for the offering of Mary. Perhaps it was sufficient to tell the priest, and above all to tell God, at this sacred place, that she was consecrated to his service. I would like to give our offering to the temple and go over there where I saw the light last year. They go, accompanied by Anna of Phanuel. They don't enter the actual temple. Since they're women and it's concerning a little girl, it's understandable that they don't even go as far as Mary went when she offered her son. But very close to the wide open door they stop, and peer into the darkened interior, from which sweet songs of girls' voices can be heard, and where precious lamps are lit, spreading their golden light on 2 flower beds of white veiled heads, 2 real flower beds of living lilies. In 3 years' time, you will be there too, my little lily, promises Anne to Mary, who gazes with fascination towards the temple enclosure and smiles at the slow, peaceful song. I would say that she understands, says Anna Ephanuel. What a beautiful child! I promise that she will be as dear to me as if she were truly my own. I promise you, mother, if it shall be granted to me to be so. You shall, woman, Zechariah says. You will receive her amongst the sacred girls, and I will also be here. I want to be here that day to tell her to pray for us from her very first moment, so close to God's seat of mercy. And he looks at his wife, who understands, and sighs. Yes, the ceremony is over, and Anna Ephanuel withdraws, while the others leave the temple speaking to one another. I hear Joachim say, "Not only 2 lambs, and the best 2, but I would have given all of our lambs for this joy and to praise God." And I do not see anything else. Jesus says, Solomon in his wisdom writes, "Whoever is a child, let him come to me." And truly, from the stronghold, from the walls of her city, eternal wisdom said to the eternal maiden, "Come to me," longing to have her. Later, the son of the most pure maiden will similarly say, "Let the little children come unto me, and do not prevent them, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs, and those who do not become like them will not have any part in my kingdom." These voices follow one another, and while the voice of heaven cries to little Mary, "Come to me," the voice of the Son of Man says, and thinks of his mother in saying so, "Come to me if you can be like children." I give you my mother as a model. Here is the perfect maiden with the pure and simple heart of a dove. Here is the one whom years and worldly contacts do not make defiant or cruel, even when surrounded by a world full of corrupted, twisted, false spirits, because she does not want it. Come to me and look at Mary. Since you see her, tell me, is her expression as an infant all that different from the one you saw her bear at the foot of the cross? Or the one she bore in the delight of Pentecost, or even her final glance, when her eyelids closed upon her innocent eyes for her last sleep? No, here is the uncertain and astonished glance of an infant. Later, it will be the amazed and modest look of the Annunciation, and then the happy one of the mother in Bethlehem, then the worshiping gaze of my first and best disciple, then the tormented one of the tortured mother on Golgotha, then the radiant expression of the resurrection in Pentecost, and at last the veiled look of the ecstatic sleep of her final vision. But whether it opens at the first sight or closes tired on the last light after seeing so much joy and horror, her eye is ever the same clear, pure, placid piece of the sky that always shines beneath her calm brow. Wrath, falsehood, pride, lewdness, hatred, curiosity never soil it with their smoky clouds. Hers is the eye that looks lovingly at God, whether it laughs or cries, an eye that, for God's sake, receives and forgives and bears everything, and by the love of God is rendered unassailable to the assaults of the evil one. He who so often makes use of the eye to penetrate and infiltrate the heart. Hers is the innocent, restful, blessing eye that the pure, the holy, the lovers of God possess. I have said that the lamp of the body is the eye. If your eye is sound, your whole body will be filled with light. But if your eye is diseased, your whole body will be lost in darkness. Saints possessed the good eye, which brings light to the soul and salvation to the flesh, because, like Mary, throughout their lives they looked only to God. Even more, they remembered God. Someday, my little voice, I will explain to you the meaning of this word of mine.